I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits that people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
So we have watched as a nation now the first presidential debate of this election cycle. This is the earliest presidential debate that we've ever witnessed as a country. We're staying on this shot to see if they acknowledge one another. One of the telling parts of this evening was from the very start, the walkout onto that debate stage in Atlanta, both the current president, President Biden, and former President Donald Trump walking out onto that stage. There was no handshake. It wasn't anticipated, that there wasn't even a look toward one another as this debate began. The tone was set right away. They debated on issues including the economy, inflation, jobs, handling of COVID, both during the Trump years and during the Biden years. Foreign policy, Afghanistan, how both handled Afghanistan, the role of NATO in talking about Ukraine, what the future of Ukraine looks like. They talked about January 6th and whether or not former President Donald Trump would denounce those who stormed the Capitol. That was asked of him by the current president, President Biden. There was not an answer to that particular question, though they did spar going back and forth multiple times. The split screen allowing the country to examine both of these men, and one of the main questions going into the night, because again, as we had mentioned, they both have been president now. Americans know their records, they've studied them, they feel like they know them. This was going to be a test tonight in aptitude. There was that moment not far from the beginning of the debate when President Biden was talking about the debt and talking about taxing billionaires in this country, where he was describing what the effect of the policy that he was proposing would have, and then there was that pause, about 5-6 seconds where he didn't say anything, and then he went on to say we finally beat Medicare. A bit of a non sequitur, it seemed. We'll be waiting to see how the Biden team explains that out. Let's get to both camps and find out how they believe their candidates did. Rachel Scott live in Atlanta in the spin room. Rachel, what are we hearing from Donald Trump's campaign tonight?
Well, I'll tell you that a senior advisor to the Trump campaign tells me that they let out a huge exhale from the moment that President Biden answered that very first question. Sources within the Trump campaign said that they were asking what was wrong with President Biden, what was wrong with his voice. They do feel like the former president tonight stayed on message. And so much of the talk heading into this was, which version of Donald Trump are we going to get? Were we going to get the combative Donald Trump that we saw in that debate in 2020, where he's interrupting, it turned into a shouting match? We did not get that version of Donald Trump tonight. This is exactly what his advisors wanted to see. They wanted to see the former president take questions on tough issues like January 6th, even his legal troubles, and then pivot back to the issues they believe are winning issues in this election: immigration, crime, the economy. We saw the former president do that many times. I will tell you, David, that out on the campaign trail, the former president does use a lot more harsh rhetoric when it comes to talking about certain issues, including immigration. He vows the largest deportation in American history. He says that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country. He didn't go so far as to repeat any of that incendiary rhetoric that we hear a lot of times on the campaign trail. One thing was clear, though, David, this turned personal rather quickly. You had President Biden call him a convicted felon, and then you had the former president fire back and call his son a convicted felon. And we are told that during these commercial breaks, these candidates did not look at each other, they did not talk, and obviously they did not shake hands on that debate stage tonight, David.
Yeah, that was another first that we witnessed. Rachel Scott, thank you. The Trump campaign happy with Donald Trump's performance tonight. The moment when President Biden did point out the fact that his opponent is a convicted felon, another split screen moment when he talked about what he was convicted of. There was some head nodding from the former President Donald Trump, which again made for a moment. Unlike, and there were many moments here that we have seen before. I am curious about that particular moment in the beginning because so much had been said about President Biden going into the night. A lot of eyes across the country watching, again, this sort of aptitude test for both gentlemen. One is 78, one is 81 years old. There was the moment, the pause, and a sort of a non sequitur there. Just